Hey guys, what's up? It's Rolly.
Hey, it's John.
Okay, so today's video is going to be going over hip hinging, and if you haven't already, go check out our previous video on core bracing, because if you haven't, today's going to be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, so it's important to pay attention today because both core bracing and hip hinging are crucial in performing either a deadlift or a squat. So let's go ahead and get into the hip hinge.
All right, let's do it. All right, guys, so I'm going to take you through a quick promo for a hip hinge, and we're going to start by using the principles from the last video of core bracing. So we're going to get our glutes tight, our core tight, and then we're going to hinge. Okay, and that was from the front. Now let's look at it from the side. So normal stance, glutes, core, and hinge. Okay, so the primary movers are going to be your glutes, secondary movers are going to be your hamstrings, and they're going to use your back muscles to just kind of stabilize your spine throughout the entire movement. All right, guys, give it a try. Okay, guys, so now what we're going to do is we're going to run you through a few techniques that you can use either by yourself or with a partner to help you learn how to hip hinge more efficiently. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this broomstick that you can get at Dollar General for like $2 or $3. It's not expensive at all. And we're going to stick it up against John's back here. And he's going to maintain contact at lumbar spine, mid to upper spine, and the back of his head while he's hinging. But first we're going to get his core braced. So let's get his glutes engaged, his core engaged. All right, and now that he's got all 3 points of contact on here, he can begin to hinge. There we go. Good. Losing at the bottom there a little bit. Good. Okay. That's tough, isn't it?
Almost just passed out.
Yeah, no, a lot of people, what they find when they first start to learn how to core brace and implement it, especially when they're doing heavier lifts, it's really hard for them to breathe. So if you can sit here and hold that core tightness and talk and breathe at the same time, you've gotten a lot better at it. So that's something that comes with trial and error, yeah. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is John's going to take this, and you can use this a band like this or a TheraBand, really anything. I used a weight belt the other day, so and I actually found that worked great. So what he's going to do is he's going to take this. He's actually going to tie it around his waist where the broomstick can touch. Here, turn for the side so they can see it a little better. Where it's going to be able to touch his head, thoracic spine, and lumbar spine. And so once he gets that on there, he's going to demonstrate to you guys a way that you can do this on your own. Now, the only drawback to this is sometimes you won't know unless you have a mirror whether or not you're maintaining all 3 points of contact, unless you're maybe not wearing very thick clothes or something where you can actually feel the broomstick very well. Okay, so now John's going to give a demonstration. Good. All right, well that's two very, very useful techniques that I've used both. So when I first started, I would have somebody always hold the stick on my back because I was so worried about breaking a neutral spine, especially because of the back pain that I used to suffer from, which was pretty excruciating at times. But now that it's kind of calmed down and I've learned how to deal with it when it flares up, I usually stick to just doing my own therapy, which I find helps me tremendously. All right, so in the next little skit, we're going to give you a few other techniques to help you maintain it if you don't have any of these supplies at all. All right,
so now we're going to discuss a couple of ways that you can see if you're properly hip hinging if you don't have a broomstick, which most of you guys are probably going to have a broomstick or have money to get one. Yeah. But we're going to talk about a few different ways, or 2 different ways that you can see if you're maintaining that neutral spine when you're hip hinging. And the way I'm going to show you first is, and you probably saw me doing this in the previous video, but you're going to have your hands placed on your stomach like this. And basically, during your hip hinge, if your hands move up or close in at all, you're not maintaining a completely neutral spine.
Right. And so what happened? What is the thing that they're doing wrong if they move apart from each other?
If they move apart, it's most likely they're extending too much in their spine, and if it's closing in, then their back is rounding.
Right, and there are definitely cons to both of those things. So you want to make sure that the hands are staying almost exactly the same distance apart. Sometimes they will move just depending on how far you are hinging because your body proportions do change at certain distances. So do you want to demonstrate that for them?
Sure. Okay. So I'll show them from the front first. So place your hands on your stomach like this. Brace your core, glutes, and hinge.
Right.
Hinge.
Nice.
Brace core, glutes,
All right, and that's actually my favorite technique.
Yeah,
But
I
there
really
is
like
another
that
one.
one.
Some people don't like that one, and they like to be kind of have their self more open while they're hinging. So it's the exact same principle. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your index finger and your thumb of each hand, and you're going to find the front part of your iliac crest on your pelvis, and then you're going to find the bottom of your ribs. Okay, and I usually do this after I've already braced my core. So my glutes are engaged, my core is braced, and then I find those 2 points. So I know that my spine is neutral at this point. Okay, so then I'm going to hinge. All right, and if those points changed in distance in either way, that means that I've broken my neutral spine. So this is what it looks like from the side. All right, and those are 2 techniques you can use if you don't have any equipment, guys. All right, guys, so now that we've taught you how to properly hip hinge, we're going to talk about why hip hinging is important. So, John, why do you think that learning hip hinge properly is essential for basically anybody who lifts weights?
Well, for anybody that lifts weights, obviously hip hinging is going to be important. I think learning how to hip hinge is important for anyone in everyday life.
Oh, yeah,
But,
for sure.
When it comes to compound movements like the squat and the deadlift, the hip hinge is so important, and they're crucial movements in both parts of the squat and the deadlift where a hip hinge is required. And the deadlift is essentially just a hip hinge in itself.
Yeah, well, a conventional deadlift is a hip hinge.
Is a hip hinge.
Or it should be. Some people don't understand that. So they see people, especially Olympic weightlifters, who drop really low before they start to pull the weight off the ground. And that's really not efficient, and they don't realize that that's actually a very, very submaximal pull. So them pulling that way doesn't necessarily hinder the lift. But if they were doing a max pull, the weight would not come off the ground in that position. They would want to be in a optimum hip hinging position to get that weight off the ground.
Yeah.
And like you were saying for the squat, if you're squatting properly, and you know this is not a 100% applies to everyone statement, but if you want to have healthy knees and you want to have a healthy back and you still want to squat, the first movement in a squat is a hip hinge. Now, depending on which form, high bar, low bar, front,
It's gonna
a high bar squat is going to be a very small hip hinge. Front squat,
Virtually
very
no,
little hip
yeah.
hinge. But a low bar squat
is pretty
significant,
drastic. Yeah.
pretty significant hip hinge in there. And I think that I actually made a instructional video on a low bar squat a while back on my personal account that actually highlighted that.
Yeah.
So if you haven't, you can follow us at Rolly_fit and as
Aesthetic diabetic, but with a 3 after the TH.
yeah. So that's not that hard to figure out. All
Yeah.
right, guys. Well, if you haven't already, subscribe, and I hope you liked the video and that it was informative. So give us a like. Thanks, guys.